The grand dining hall of the mansion sparkled with light, the kind of golden glow that came from chandeliers so massive they looked like something out of a royal palace. Crystal glasses shimmered, silver forks gleamed, and plates were stacked with food so rich and heavy it could have fed an entire village. To anyone looking from the outside, it was the image of luxury, a feast meant to impress. But to the little black girl sitting quietly at the far end of the table, it was something entirely different. Her hands trembled as she gripped her fork, staring at the untouched plate in front of her. Every bite she tried to force down felt like swallowing stones. The meat was perfectly seasoned, the vegetables crisp and colorful, the desserts lined up like jewels waiting to be tasted, but none of it mattered. Her throat tightened, and finally, with tears streaming down her cheeks, she whispered so softly at first that only the clinking of forks could be heard. Then she said it louder, her voice cracking, "I can't swallow another bite." The room froze. For a split second, silence replaced the chatter of the other children and the sharp laughter of the woman at the head of the table. Then the foster mother, a woman whose perfectly styled hair and expensive jewelry could not hide the coldness in her heart, slammed her fork down. Her eyes narrowed into slits, and her voice dripped with venom. "You ungrateful child," she spat. "Do you know how much this food costs? Do you think everyone is lucky enough to eat like this? And yet here you sit, crying like it's poison." The girl flinched at the sharpness of her words. She wanted to explain, to make her understand, but no one ever listened when she spoke. It wasn't that she was spoiled or picky. She would have been grateful for even a single warm bowl of soup or a simple piece of bread. What weighed on her wasn't the food, it was the loneliness. While the others laughed and talked, she was always left out. When the plates were passed around, hers often came last. When desserts were served, hers was sometimes forgotten. And tonight, the weight of that emptiness finally spilled out as tears. Her stomach twisted, not just from hunger, but from the ache of feeling invisible. She looked up at the long, polished table, where her foster siblings giggled at her misery. They never missed a chance to remind her that she wasn't really part of the family, that she didn't belong. The foster mother smirked, clearly enjoying the way the little girl's spirit seemed to shrink smaller with every passing second. The golden chandeliers above sparkled brighter, casting harsh reflections on the silver plates, almost mocking her pain. The aroma of roasted meat, buttery rolls, and rich gravy filled the air. But instead of making her feel comforted, it turned her stomach sour. She thought of the scraps she was sometimes given when no one was watching, the way she hid in the corner to eat while others feasted proudly at the table. Tonight, they had forced her to sit with them, perhaps as some cruel reminder of what she was missing. Her eyes drifted to the head of the table, the seat that remained empty. That was where the mansion's owner, the billionaire himself, usually sat. To the girl, he was like a shadow. She had only glimpsed him from afar, always dressed in tailored suits, always surrounded by people who looked just as important as he did. His presence in the mansion was felt everywhere, in the grand design, the expensive meals, the way the staff carried themselves, but she had never spoken to him. To her, he was a distant figure, untouchable and far beyond her world. But then something changed. The laughter died down, replaced by the faint echo of footsteps from the hallway. They weren't the light footsteps of the maids or the hurried steps of the kitchen staff. These were heavier, firmer, each one deliberate, each one echoing authority. The sound grew louder, and the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The smugness on the foster mother's face flickered, and the siblings who usually sneered at her fell silent, their giggles fading into nervous glances at one another. The girl's heart pounded. She didn't dare to look up at first, afraid of hoping, afraid of being disappointed. But when the dining room doors swung open, her breath caught in her throat. There he was, the billionaire himself, tall, commanding, with an air that filled the room before he even spoke. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his tie knotted with precision, but it wasn't his clothing that silenced the room. It was the way his presence demanded respect without effort. His eyes scanned the room, sharp and observant, taking in every detail. And then they landed on her, the little girl with tears on her cheeks and a plate of untouched food before her. Something softened in his gaze. For the first time, she felt seen. For the first time, she felt as if someone's eyes didn't just look past her. And in that moment, silence fell so deep that even the ticking of the golden clock on the wall could be heard. The billionaire stood at the doorway, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the shining marble floor. The atmosphere in the room was charged, tense, as though even the walls knew something was about to change. Without a word, he walked toward the table, his footsteps echoing like a slow drumbeat. He didn't take his usual place at the head of the table, the seat that symbolized power and authority. Instead, to everyone's surprise, he walked straight to the little girl. She sat frozen, her small hands trembling in her lap, her tears glistening under the golden chandelier. For so long, she had wished someone would notice her pain, but never once had she imagined it would be him. When he reached her, he lowered himself to one knee, so that his eyes were level with hers. His presence was overwhelming, yet his gaze was gentle, like a father trying to comfort his child. "Why are you crying, little one?" he asked softly, his deep voice carrying more warmth than she had ever heard in this mansion. The girl's lips parted, but no words came at first. She had learned to silence herself, to swallow her feelings because no one cared to listen. But something about the kindness in his eyes pushed her to speak. Her voice quivered as she whispered, "I can't swallow another bite. Not when I feel so alone here. Everyone treats me like I don't belong." Her confession hung in the air like a fragile glass about to shatter. The billionaire's eyes darkened, and not with disappointment at her. No, his fury was aimed at the ones who had failed her. He slowly turned his head toward the foster mother, whose face had turned pale as if all the blood had drained out of it. His tone changed, sharp and commanding, a voice that brooked no defiance. "Is this how you've been treating her?" the foster mother stammered, her voice a mix of fear and desperation. "And no, sir, she lies. She's just dramatic. She doesn't appreciate what we give her." Enough. The billionaire's voice cut like a blade, firm and final. His eyes blazed as he rose to his full height, towering over the woman who suddenly looked small and powerless. "I will not allow a child under my roof to feel like an outcast. This mansion is not a prison. It is not a place where cruelty hides behind chandeliers and gold plates." The siblings who had mocked the girl stared at their plates, their smirks gone, their hands shaking as they fumbled with their silverware. The weight of his words filled the hall, stripping away their arrogance. Then he turned back to the girl, and his voice softened again. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, steady and reassuring. "You belong here as much as anyone else, maybe even more. And from this day forward, you will never sit at the end of this table again. From today, you sit beside me." The girl gasped softly, her tears falling freely now. For so long she had felt invisible, like a shadow in the corner of the mansion. But in that moment she felt seen, truly seen. The warmth of his promise filled the empty spaces in her heart. He turned to the staff standing nearby. "See to it that she is cared for properly. From now on, she is not just another child in this house. She is my responsibility." The foster mother opened her mouth to protest, but the billionaire's sharp glance silenced her. "One more word from you, and you will not set foot in this dining hall again." The girl's heart swelled. The emptiness in her stomach was still there, but no longer felt like hunger. It felt like hope. For the first time, she wasn't afraid to pick up her fork. For the first time, she felt like the food in front of her was truly meant for her, too. That night, as she sat at the billionaire's side, she didn't just taste food. She tasted belonging. She tasted love. And she knew that her life in this mansion would never be the same again.